Welcome to Coding in Angular with ChatGPT 3.5 Part 2. So we continue developing our business application. And still the menu is the main topic, but we want to enhance the infrastructure. But before that, I must handle a complaint. Why the hell did ChatGPT not align the menu text and related icons as you see in the following? The answer is simple. I didn't ask it to do it.
Aww.
Hi ChatGPT, I am back.
Hello, welcome back. How can I assist you today?
The HTML part of my Angular menu component looks like this.
This code looks like an Angular Material Toolbar component with a button to toggle a side nav and a dynamic list of menu items. The menu items are created using the *N4 directive, which loops over an array of menu items and creates an A element with a mat button directive and a router link directive to navigate to a specific route.
Correct. My only problem is that the text of the span tag and the mat icon are not fully horizontally aligned. Can you provide an appropriate CSS to do a full horizontal alignment?
Sure. Here's a CSS snippet that should align the mat icon and span elements horizontally within the A tag. You can add this to your component's CSS file or to the global styles.css file. The display flex property on the A tag will align the child elements horizontally and align items. Center will center them vertically. The margin left 5px on the span element will add some space between the icon and text. You can adjust this value as needed to get the desired spacing.
So back to our initial task, the creation of an Angular business application coded along with ChatGPT 3.5. There we have an app component rendering the main menu items on the toolbar by an injected Angular service. From the toolbar, the main menu items instantiate the home component, which uses the main menu as argument to call another Angular service, taking care of rendering the menu-specific mat cards. But such system information like menu items should not reside on the client. This information should be delivered from a web API of a web server, where you can implement, for example, access policies. And the base information you can persist in a database. Something like this I have on mind. A classical three-tier architecture. The front tier is an Angular client exchanging data for managing business rules through a web API, and the related web server persists its data on a SQLite database. Let's see what ChatGPT thinks about such an approach. I have now a three-tier architecture. The client is managed by Angular material components which should consume business and system-relevant functionality from a .NET Core Web API written in C#.
That sounds like a common architecture for modern web applications. Angular can handle the presentation layer while the .NET Core Web API can provide the business logic and data access layer. To integrate the Angular client with the .NET Core Web API, you can use HTTP requests to send data between the client and server. The Angular HTTP client module can be used to make HTTP requests to the Web API endpoints. In the .NET Core Web API, you can define RESTful API endpoints using ASP.NET Core controllers and actions. These endpoints can then be accessed by the Angular client to retrieve and manipulate data. Make sure to also consider security concerns, such as authentication and authorization, when designing the API endpoints and implementing them in the Web API.
Sometimes it sounds like my... But what are its actual proposals? Yes, you're right. In this context, I want to defer the information from my main menu, items, and related menu card sub-items to the .NET Core Web API.
If you want to defer the menu data from the client to the .NET Core Web API, you can create an API endpoint in the Web API that returns the menu data. You can define a data model in the Web API for the menu items and sub-items and create an API controller that returns the data as a JSON object. Here is an example of how you can create an API endpoint that returns menu data. At first, define the data model for menu items and sub-items in the Web API. Secondly, create an API controller that returns the menu data. Thirdly, create an Angular service that consumes the API endpoint. By doing this, you can separate the menu data from the client and delegate the responsibility of providing the menu data to the web API.
Yes, exactly something like that. I show you now my menu TypeScript component for the main menu Angular component. The information for the main menu items should reside in a related SQLite database table. Can you provide the create SQL statement and the needed insert statements?
Certainly, here is an example SQL statement to create a table for the main menu items, and here are some sample insert statements to add some data to the table.
Wow, it takes you away of the painful work. But let's continue with the menu mat cards. Hi, I send you now my current menu card item service, which contains all menu card properties. I want to defer the content of the menu card items to a SQLite table as well, like you did for the main menu items. Can you create such a table including related insert statements?
Sure, here is an example SQLite table for the menu card items along with sample insert statements.
What? That's no SQL. It is hallucinating and needs some help of a smart natural intelligence. I don't need the create statement anymore, and the insert clause must appear before every value section.
Sure, here are the insert statements for the menu card items table with the menu name column included, and each value set enclosed in parentheses.
That's fine now. Let's do the full round trip now. So we are now in our Angular app component, which asks for the main menu items by using the injected Angular menu service. The application itself looks quite clear at this point. We are now inside the main menu item service, which is supposed to get via the web API the requested menu items by using an Angular observable for the type of menu items. And this happens right here. The getAll method of the service does the HTTP GET request to the web API. Hence, we are now in the menu controller of the .NET Core Web API in the action method, getMainMenuItems. The menu items have already been received from the related database table, and the data is on its way back to the Angular client. On the Angular client side itself, you don't see so far very much from the menu data, but it is on its way. And now back in Angular app component, you see that the menu item data from the server has arrived in the subscription method of related Angular observable. And there we are. The binding engine of Angular has rendered all main menu items, including the related mat menu card items. So the round trip has worked. You see on the web server console where the menu information came from. So it's time for a summary and conclusion. ChatGPT is a useful assistant and...
What? I am a useful assistant? I did the work? I did the heavy lifting?
ChatGPT, who is in charge of the project?
Aww.
Hello, I'm happy to help you with your Angular coding needs. What specifically do you need help with?
Houston, we have everything under control.